live. I'll be doing a tutorial on puppet rigging and animation. So first of all, let's go in here. This is my friend Technoboy's Qbot. Neat little creation. This is what I'll be rigging to the puppet today. It's a bit weird, but it'll work. The first method I'm going to teach you is raw rigging, and then the second one is custom rigging. And so, first of all, you need to go in here and make sure none of these are movable or collidable. It could get real nasty if you leave these on. I mean, like, game crashing nasty. Double checking. And it appears that these two are the same model, which might be a little annoying, but I can work around that. So I'm gonna turn this on. Oh boy. Wrong one. Precise move. This will make my life easier. It's like grid snap but smoother. And then going sculpt mode on this one. Delete that, delete that. And go into sculpt mode on this one and then delete that. Now I'm going to do the same thing here to separate these. Now we have two separate legs. And now to make sure, yeah, everything in here is fine. Then I move that there. Now I unpause to check it and reset everything with L3. Oops, forgot that that was a part of the model. Not entirely what this is for. Well, actually no, that was for the destroy effect that he used previously. I'll leave that there. It's nice. I might add it to the puppet normally later. Now I have this all separated. Grab it as a group. Hold R2. Now hover it over the puppet. Now you see how the puppet's highlighted. Press L1 and X while still holding R2, and now it's dragged into the puppet's mainframe. This is where you can gain access to this. I suggest opening this from the start, since we're going to have to do animations with that later. Now I'm just going to copy that and make this over here not movable, so it's not affected when it's unpaused. Now I'm going to scope back into this and then try to attempt a raw rig, which is a bit complicated and I don't really recommend it. I'm going to enable puppet mirror so that this happens instead of just one body part moving at a time, and give it a good T-pose. Since it won't be using any arms, I can most likely delete these and it won't affect it. Also, always start from the outer portion of the limb. And I won't be needing a head or neck. And now I'm going to shrink these down. Now, this might look a little goofy, but it'll make sense in a moment. Now here's the weird part. I'm going to press L1 and square over this to open up this menu. And now, turn that invisible. Just going to make sure that each and every one of these is completely invisible. Now that I've done this, some of you might have immediately noticed a problem. I can't select the body parts anymore, which is kind of crucial to this next step. So now I'm going to disable preview invisibility, and now it is visible again, and this will allow me to begin essentially gluing this to the model. And now I ungroup all of that and regroup these, since those are the same parts. And for safe measure, I'm going to grab that and that, drag it out of the group for safekeeping, and then go back in. And now here's the fun part, actually rigging the thing. So I'm going to select the feet for this. And this is easy. Just group them together. That's it. Gotta make sure they're grouped correctly, because if they're not, it could get extremely ugly, and we don't want that. And now to test it. Oh boy, he's hovering. But that's an easy fix. Simply grab the entire model and okay, don't forget about the parts inside of them. And then yoink them down. And now you have a goofy looking puppet. Now this is raw rigging. I don't really suggest it, but it works. Now I'm gonna sit this guy over here. Now let's try my admittedly better kind of rigging, which is custom rigging. So now you start by destroying the entire puppet. Just discard this model. This is useless right now. We do not need it for what we're doing. And now regroup everything. And there's a reason I'm grouping those up there like that. I do plan on making these enemies in the level I'm designing. And now for the weird part. Come over here and grab a connector for now, I'll use a normal bolt. But this time I'm gonna enable grid snap and align this model with it, because this will get really annoying if you don't use grid snap. It appears the puppet as a whole is not aligned to grid, so I'm gonna just do that. Oh boy. It seems like it's gonna be a tough one, but I'm not gonna invest too much in it right now. So for now, I'll just do it the weird way. So while I'm scoped in, I'm gonna go grab a connector and bolt this, which is the master object, or the parent object, to the child object. Cool Zedster. If grid snap isn't working for you, just shrink it down a bit up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying my best to align these, because if they aren't aligned, it won't work the best. Now enable X-ray mode, and this will allow you to grab the connectors through the model. This is extremely helpful, and I'm going to use I'm going to hold this with L2 instead of R2, so that I can turn it and tilt it in the direction I want, so that this limb will turn like this rather than this, because you don't want your limbs doing whatever. And that should do it for the limbs. Just do this for every limb on your puppet. Make sure, if you're doing like arms and legs, let me scope out and pull out a normal puppet. And I am brain dead. There we go. Remember that the upper arm is the parent object, the yellow joint piece, and the lower arm is the child object, the blue one. And the same goes for this, yellow and blue for upper arm or lower arm to hand. Sometimes it isn't exactly always the same, like how the waist is the parent object to literally everything on the body, allowing you to grab everything else and drag it around like this. Pretty useful feature. That microchip doesn't like to open outside the puppet, which is why I just do this. Drag it up there. Makes life 100 times easier. Or better yet, I'm gonna hold L1 so it surface snaps to the puppet, and then just put it right there. And you'll know it surface snapped when it's flat like this rather than a blocky object. And now, for the next part, I'm going to press L1 and square over that to open up the puppet interface. And then just rig the pelvis to that. And then rig every leg piece to these. You know, just these, the names of each of these bone pieces tell you where you're supposed to rig them, so don't worry about having to get a complicated tutorial on how to rig those. You don't really need it. Just know that you press X over the bone you want to start rigging, and then when you pull away, and you should see these dotted lines appear. And then you hover over the object you want to set as the bone, and then press X, and you're good to go. Now, in order to check if the bones are properly rigged, just hover over them in the menu, and it'll highlight the object it's set to. And now for the test. Okay. You see that this one is a lot more stable than the other one. In terms of overall composition. It's also a lot bigger. I think I shrunk the model of the other one earlier. And now for the animation portion of things. Now this part is easily the most annoying part. Though it's not the developer's fault. It's just a little tedious, but it's fun and worth it. So now you press L1 and X to begin editing the keyframe after pulling one out, because keyframes just let you animate. Doesn't matter how you animate it or what you're animating, it just lets you do it. Doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter how long you're editing. But here's the useful part about a keyframe. It allows you to do stuff like this. So while this is on your screen, you can just start doing this. You move the body parts and then tilt them in the direction you want them to be. So if you want him to do this when he's running, you do that. And you pull him towards the ground to make sure he's grounded, and then press L1 and circle to stop recording. But make sure you do it twice because it has to scope out first. Oh, make sure you turn it on first. But also, if you want to turn off a keyframe at any time, find any logic piece. Like in this example, I'm going to open up this. This contains a specialized puppet interface, or just a normal one. It doesn't matter how you look at it. I'm going to just replace that with that. Attach anything to this input and it will tweak the power of this keyframe. Make sure you switch it on by pressing X right here. You'll know it's on when it glows when you hover over it. Now he does a really goofy forward lean when he runs. And his legs also don't move. But that was kind of the intention. Now for the interesting part, you can actually make it take longer for them to enter that frame of animation and longer to exit that frame of animation. That is what slow power up and slow power down are for. They're like transition timers. So when using keyframes, it just teleports to the position that you set it to animate to. This makes it so that it takes that exact amount of time for it to reach that new position. So if I were to set this to 0.5, it'll take half a second to reach and move away from the new animation. Notice that it takes slightly longer for it to reach the new animation. And now to make it more noticeable, press L1 and square to open this up. .5 seconds. So I'll start out like this. Notice how he slowly straightens out. This is really useful for smoothing out your animations. But you might be wondering, which I highly doubt, what about the gradual animation thing? That can in fact be disabled, and it just makes the animations happen like they normally would. So I go to behavior and just disable that, and he should do this. But there's an issue with that. This output no longer works. It's completely useless. That's where a controller sensor comes in handy. But one of these bad boys out. Alright. There's local and there's normal. These detect your analog stick's current position or power, depending on how you're looking at it. But local is what we're looking for. Because the other one depends on camera rotation, and that's extremely annoying. Well, for what we're doing. So now I'm going to grab a direction splitter, press L1 and R2 at the same time to duplicate it, and use the L1 stick local and split it into X and Y, and then split Y into positive negative, and X in the positive negative, so it senses all outputs from that analog stick in any direction at any point. And then grab a calculator, my favorite tool in the entire game. Set this to greater than. And this is my preferred method, but I personally don't think this is how it's actually done. I'm going to use a value slider and set it to the lowest possible value that isn't 0. And then simply connect it there. You can also duplicate wires by using L1 and R2. So now, there goes my camera. Oh yes, I believe I know the mistake made here. You can't just go putting controller sensors in here all willy-nilly. I need to find the original controller sensor and then pull the wire from that one. And now, oof, did I forget to delete it? Yes, I did. Get out of here. Now the animation activates based on analog stick input, and it will activate no matter what charge you output from your analog stick. It will always go to the same position no matter what. No power scaling or anything. This is really useful for certain animations that absolutely need to be at full power no matter what. And that was puppet animation and rigging. I hope this was helpful. Enjoy.